Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of RAU'S IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper. Articles dated 9th of June 2022 are listed on your screen, and the timestamping for these articles is already given in the description box. So let us begin with the first article for the day.
Here is your question for weekly answer writing practice. Question is, critically analyze Government of India's decision to join Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. You have to answer the question in 150 words and try to submit it before Saturday to get it evaluated by the evaluation team at RAU'S IAS. The answer to this question and detailed discussion was conducted on 6th of June 2022 DNS. This article appeared on page number 8 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the violation of rights of the convicts in Indian judicial system. The article actually talks about the weak judicial system. Now, weak judicial system, human rights of the convicts are part of your GS paper 2 in much detail. Even in 2021 prelim examination, UPSC has asked question related to the custody of a person. Indian Constitution in the fundamental right has also provided some of the safeguards given to the convicts as well as the under trials. So based on these three important parameters, we are going to analyze today's article in much detail. The context says that in light of the fake encounter done by the police across India, there is a need for an independent magisterial inquiries to be conducted under the direction of the court. Section 176 of Criminal Procedure Code prescribes that an inquiry by the magistrate into the cause of death. Now we will look into this section much more detail, and we will also look into some of the rights which are provided to the convicts in India. Apart from that, we will also look into the aspect of judicial system and its functioning with respect to the fake encounters. Before moving to the concept of custody, let us analyze the section 176 of Criminal Procedure Code. If an information is received by a police station with respect to a suicide of a prisoner, death or disappearance of a prisoner, death of a prisoner. See, we are talking about prisoners and not a common person. We are talking about the prisoner who is inside the prisoner or inside the jail. So in third case, if there is a death of a prisoner under circumstances which raises the reasonable suspicion, or if there is a case of suicide by a woman within 7 years of marriage, that is marital suicide, or if there is a case related to the death of a woman within 7 years of marriage in any circumstances that is suspicious. So whether we talk about the prisoner or we talk about the women in marriage within 7 years, all these provisions are covered under the section 176 of CRPC. And based on that, it is the duty of the police to approach the nearest magistrate or any magistrate who is empowered to conduct an inquiry into the cause of death. Now, the article talks about the case of Hyderabad in 2019, where prisoners became disappeared. They ran away from the police custody. So, the disappearance was the major cause. But without arresting them or without producing them in front of the magistrate, they were literally killed by the police in an encounter. And the recent report says that that encounter was a fake encounter, which violates the basic human rights of judicial convicts. However, we have a condition also. If any person dies or disappears from the police custody or the judicial custody, or if there is a rape which is being committed during a police custody or the judicial custody, then under this, the inquiry should be conducted by the judicial magistrate or a metropolitan magistrate under section 176 1A. Now, from the UPSC perspective, if a question is asked with respect to the human rights of convicts, you can quote section 176 in your answer writing. You can also utilize this section 176 in your essay paper or even while making your substantial viewpoint in the interview stage. The guidelines which are given with respect to the rights of the convicts as per the National Human Rights Commission are as follows. There should be a magisterial inquiry if there is a death or any manner or sequence leading to death, cause of death, any person found responsible for the death, or any act of commission or omission on the part of public servant, in this case the police, which has contributed to the death. In this case, a magisterial inquiry should be conducted. But as we know, most of the time these inquiries are neglected by the police department to commit the fake encounters. Now let us understand what is custody and what is arrest. Normally we consider both of them to be the synonym, but they are not. A custody simply means apprehending someone for protective care. So when a person is in custody to the police or to be under the custody of a magistrate, that person is actually under the protective care of the police department or the judicial department. Then it is the duty of the respective department to protect this person from external harm. So whenever a person is arrested, he or she will be there in the custody of a particular institution. Arrest, remand and bail are components related to the investigation. Arrest directly curtails person's liberty and also affect his or her freedom. Arrest simply means that person's right of personal liberty will be curtailed. So this is the basic difference between custody and the arrest. In the previous many instances, we have laws where unwarranted arrest have been made or unwanted or unlawful detentions have been committed by the police department in India. Now, because of this vague definition of both arrest and the custody, we have the cases of ambiguous situation where people are arrested because they are not very much aware of their human rights. Now, we should also understand what police custody is. Now, police custody simply means after receiving the information, complaint or the report, a police will approach to the crime scene and will arrest a person in order to prevent him or her committing the further offense, and will bring the person to the respective police station. So this is what is known as police custody. At this stage, there is no mention of how magisterial or judicial person will intervene. This person under the police custody will remain with the police in the local police station for 24 hours, and within this 24 hours, this person who is under the police custody should be provided in front of the respective magistrate. And this 24-hour is the deadline. If police fails to present this person to the judicial magistrate, that amounts to the violation of Criminal Procedure Code. This is also part of Article 22 of Fundamental Rights. But most of the time people are not aware of their fundamental right. So this is what is violated mostly in India. Now we should also understand what is the difference between the police custody and the judicial custody. Well, police custody, as we have discussed, is the arrest of a person or the custody or the protective care under which a person is kept with the police department for first 24 hours. But what is the judicial custody? When the custody or the protective care is handed over to the judicial department through the order given by the magistrate, that is the judicial custody. Under the police custody, a convict is locked in the police station, while under the judicial custody, he or she is sent to the jail for further investigation. Once the accused is presented before the judicial magistrate, then magistrate can grant him or her the bail, in which the role of lawyer is important. Or that convict can be sent, or the accused can be sent to the judicial custody for further stay, or the accused can be sent back to the police custody for the further interrogation. When a person goes to the judicial custody, he or she is not allowed to be interrogated by the police department. However, court may allow for the interrogation of the person if it thinks that interrogation is necessary for the further investigation. Now, what we have learned so far. In the Hyderabad case, police should have arrested the accused. They should have presented the accused in front of the judicial magistrate. Judicial magistrate should have provided the course of action for further investigation, and also the protection under the Indian Constitution. However, nothing of this process was followed, hence it has been seen as a violation of human rights, which is highly volatile in Indian justice system. Now let us go through the important constitutional provisions in this regard. From the perspective of UPSC prelim examination, these articles are extremely important and you should revise these articles from time to time. First protection is under Article 21, which provides protection of life and personal liberty, under which executive actions cannot be taken as granted for taking away the life of a person. Article 20 of the Indian Constitution under fundamental right provide that a person shall be convicted only for the violation of a law which is in force at the time of the commission of a crime and penalized accordingly. Understand this in simpler terms. Assume that the crime was committed in 2015 and the law was made in 2020. Now, a person who committed the crime in 2015 knew that he or she, whatever he or she is doing, is not a crime. However, the same act become a crime in 2020. So, a person will not be arrested and will not be convicted in 2020 for the crime that he or she has committed in 2015. So, in order to convict a person, law of the land should prevail at the time of commission of the crime. The second point of this article says that no person shall be prosecuted or punished for the same offence. That means if a person has committed an offence in 2015, got 3 years of imprisonment and was released in 2018, then the same person will not be arrested in 2020 for the crime which was committed in 2015. So for same crime, a person will not be convicted twice. The third thing under this article says that no person shall be accused to commit or that no person should be forced to provide witness against himself. That is, a person will not be forced by the police department or by the judicial department to provide witness against himself. A person can defend himself, but that person will not speak anything against to himself or herself in the forced manner. Article 22 of the same fundamental right says that there should be a protection which is given against the arrest or the detention under certain cases in India. However, this protection is limited because any person for the time being, if he or she is from the enemy or an alien or from an enemy country like Ajmal Kasab, that preventive detention will not work on that. If any person who is arrested or detained under any law providing for the preventive detention, that person will not be provided protection under Article 22. So what we have learned so far? So far we have understood that according to this article, constitutional provisions as well as the legal provisions in India, the judicial system of India should function according to the rule of law. And if that rule of law is not being practiced, and there is arbitrary action conducted by the police department, there should be a magisterial level inquiry to provide the complete justice to the convicted person. With this discussion placed, now I will leave you with this prelims related question to practice. So read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. Let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared in text and context part of the Hindu newspaper. According to this article, Ukraine war has caused global food crisis, in which India has also been impacted. The context of the article says that war between Russia and Ukraine has sent a global food price soaring and threatening to push millions of people, especially in Asia and Africa, towards starvation. According to this article, Ukraine and its allies are blaming Russia for the food crisis in the world. Why? Because they say that Russia has actually blocked Ukraine's Black Sea ports such as Mykolaiv and Odessa. Now, where these two important places are located? Now, this is your Odessa, that is in the southern part of Ukraine, and on the northeastern side of Odessa, we have Mykolaiv. Both these ports have been blocked by the Russian forces because now they are controlling majority of the southeastern portion of Ukraine, and because of this blockage, Ukraine is not able to commit the international trade in food commodities. On the other hand, the Moscow, that is Russia, has blamed the Western sanctions for the crisis. Russia has said that Western sanctions on Russian exports and import are the real reasons behind the food insecurity across the globe, because these sanctions have complicated the exports and the payments against them. Now, according to FAO, it was the period of 2008 to 10 in which oils or the oil seeds and the cereals were seen to be rising tremendously. And that was the period when the entire global market was under distress. However, after 10 years down the line, now we are seeing that there is again a push in the food price index globally because of the cereals and the oil or the oil seeds. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, global food price index has recorded one of its highest peak in March this year. It has been highest since the level of 1990 when there was Gulf crisis. According to World Bank also, the agriculture price index was 40% higher compared to last year. It was very high with respect to maize and wheat, where these two countries are important exporter. Even in the case of fuel and fertilizers, the prices are projected to be higher and remain so till 2024. And even according to the UN World Food Programme, because of the rising prices, countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Sudan, Yemen, and others will remain on the highest possible alert with respect to the catastrophic conditions in the food security. Afghanistan and Somalia also falls in the same category. Now, why Ukraine and Russia are crucial for world food supply? Now, Russia and Ukraine together account for more than a quarter, that is 25% of world's wheat supply. Now, you must be thinking that why India is not the highest supplier. The reason being simple: the consumption of India's wheat is very high with respect to its production. And sometimes even India has to import the food items from outside. Because of the high consumption over the production of food grains, India is not the net exporter. Now, surprisingly, this year, as the prices of the international food items were very competitive, Indian exporters, Indian government thought that India can fill up the gap created after the withdrawal of Russia and Ukraine from the international market. Ukraine is world's fourth largest exporter of corn, that is 16% of the global supply. It also produces 46% of the sunflower seed as well as the safflower oil in the world's export. Russia, on the other hand, is leading exporter of fertilizers, which is an essential input for the food production even in India. Russia, along with the Belarus, produces potash fertilizer and also the nitrogen fertilizer. So, because of all these reasons, the war has created the deficit of these multiple goods and their inputs in the international market. Now, this table shows how different countries are dependent on Russia and Ukraine. As far as barley dependency is concerned, so China, being the highest importer, has to bear a cost of 14 billion loss. As far as wheat is concerned, here Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia are the important importers. As far as corn is concerned, again we have China on the top position. Surprisingly, India does not have major imports in these three commodities from these two nations. On the other hand, India actually took the advantage of providing or to bridging the gap of wheat and barley and corn supply in the international market. India took an advantage for the past 1 month. However, because of the domestic rise in the price and the higher inflation, India had to take back a decision and had to put restrictions on wheat exports. Now, what would be the solution? The important solution is the bilateral talk between both these countries so as to bring the international food market into its current position. As far as sunflower oil is concerned, yes, in this case, India is one of the highest importer. So, India have to find a solution as soon as possible to get its dependency reduced on the sunflower oil from these countries. Both these countries at war should also start to export through the Azov or the Black Sea as soon as possible to meet the global demand. And of course, if they meet the global demand, the money flowing into their economy will help to revamp their own economic status. Now, how it has impacted India? Well, India's dependency on Russia and Ukraine, as we have discussed, is highest in the case of sunflower. India also imports a large share of fertilizer from Russia. India is also one of the largest importer of Russian defense goods. However, defense goods are not a short-term necessity. They does not have a high price elasticity. Because of this war-led crisis, India had to look towards Canada and Israel to meet its demand towards the fertilizer. Now, what are the future scope in this regard? Well, India must take a consolidated position with countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Indonesia, where wheat or Indian wheat is already popular. India should try to expand its wheat export even to Turkey, Egypt and Middle East, where Russia, Ukraine and other neighboring countries have been a long-standing market leaders. So what India has to do? First of all, India should meet its domestic demand, but at the same time, India should not miss the opportunity to take the benefit of international rise in the prices of food items, especially wheat and oilseeds. However, given all these solutions, why there are issues with Indian export? The first one is that countries have not previously imported wheat from India. And the reason was that India's wheat has not been able to clear the pest risk analysis in the international quality standards. However, some of the countries are now insisting India to complete this analysis as soon as possible to make the market access for their wheat. Lack of consistent export and import policy is the another reason where India is not able to meet the international demand. Indian government in the month of March and April began to export wheat outside India. There were large benefits, profit making situations were there, and India was earning a lot on its export of food items, especially wheat. However, given the domestic supply constraint, India had to put a ban on the wheat export. Now, what is this? This is the inconsistency on India's export and import policy that should be reduced as much as possible for now. With this discussion, please let us now move to the next article for the day. This article appeared on page number 8 of Delhi edition Hindu newspaper and talks about the recent initiative taken by the Reserve Bank of India with respect to India's monetary policy. Now, RBI has conducted a recent monetary policy committee and has submitted its report in which it has increased the repo rate by 50 basic point. 50 basic point here simply means that the rate of interest now will be increased by 0.5%. So if a person was, let's say, paying 5% interest rate on the loan, will now be paying 5.5% for the same. The reason for which RBI has taken such an initiative is to control the consumer price index, which is also the basic for the inflation control in the country. Now, Monetary Policy Committee, apart from the repo rate, has also increased the standing deposit facility rate and the marginal standing facility rate. If you want to read more on these important rates, link for the same DNS has been provided in the description below. So you can go through that link and learn more about these rates. The Monetary Policy Committee, apart from increasing the rate of interest, has also reviewed one of the important fund which was created last year. The fund which was created last year is the Payment Infrastructure Development Fund. So from the perspective of prelim examination, we are going to dissect and learn more about this fund in detail. Previously, when government was looking after the demonetization program, it started promoting the e-payments or cashless payments across the country. After a period of about 3-4 years, government along with the RBI found out that the e-payment system were coming back to their low percentage. Then a committee was conducted under the RBI, and the biggest constraint which was found for the promotion of e-payment was that there is a poor penetration with respect to the digital payment or cashless payment in point of sale machines. So point of sale machines were very restricted. their utilization, use in small towns and cities was very, very limited. So what RBI has done? They have recommended a separate fund altogether at the national level. The money which is going to be there in this fund will be utilized for the promotion of digital payments across the country. In 2021, Reserve Bank of India has created Payment Infrastructure Development Fund in this regard, and the money out of this fund will be utilized for the deployment of physical point of sale machines, M point of sale machines, or quick response. And these important machineries will be deployed in tiers 3, 4, 5 and 6 centers across India as well as northeastern states. Now what RBI will do out of this money? This money will be utilized as a subsidy, and this subsidy will be given to banks as well as authorized card networks. Once banks and authorized card networks will get fund from PIDF, they will be encouraged to set up point of sale as well as QR codes in small towns and cities. Initially, Reserve Bank of India gave 250 crore rupees in this regard, and the rest of the money came from banks and card networks. So basically, the subsidy which is given under this fund will be used to promote the e-payments across India. PIDF or this fund is governed by the Advisory Council and is managed and administered by Reserve Bank of India. So this is an important prelims takeaway from this topic. So what has happened recently? The recent MPC meeting says that Reserve Bank has proposed to provide some modification in this scheme, and this modification will target increasing the subsidy amount as well as accelerating and augmenting more deployment of payment acceptance infrastructure across the country. If you want to learn more on how RBI through its monetary policy functions, what are different rate of interest it charges, or how it actually functions with respect to the monetary policy, you can go through the DNS dated 5th of May 2022 for more details. The link to this video is already given in the description box. With this, now I will leave you with this question to practice. So read this question carefully and try to answer in the comment box. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. The next two articles for today's Daily News Simplified will be presented by Mr. Gaurav Tripathi. Thank you.
This topic has appeared at page number 14 in today's The Hindu Daily edition. This topic talks about an important index rankings which holds significance in the global platform in the context of environment climate change. This topic mentions about the Environment Performance Index, which has recently come out with its report and has ranked India as the bottommost country. And this is the very context of this particular news article. And for this ranking, India has objected to the reports, stating that it takes unscientific considerations into account and the weightage given to multiple parameters is also not appropriate. As far as the UPSC's scheme of syllabus is concerned, this topic is mainly relevant from the preliminary examinations because the syllabus of prelims mentions the general issues in environment, ecology, biodiversity and climate change. Further, if you also go by the previous year question analysis, UPSC almost every year comes with a question relating to the global reports or global index rankings. For example, in 2019, UPSC asked, the Global Competitiveness Report is published by which of the following organizations? Similarly, in the upcoming prelims examination, there can be a question on the Environment Index rankings, that is, the Environment Performance Index. Hence, in this regard, we will look at certain key facts related to this particular report. Now, the Environment Performance Index is a joint project of two organizations. One is the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy, and the second is the Center for International Earth Sciences Information Network at Columbia University Earth Institute. This importantly means that this index is not provided by some intergovernmental organizations. Rather, it is given by two independent institutions working in this field. The 2022 Environment Performance Index provides a quantitative basis for comparing, analyzing, and understanding the performance of 180 countries. There are multiple parameters on which this report is made. There are several issue categories. However, among all those categories and parameters, climate change performance, environmental health, and ecosystem vitality are the three broader aspects. The Environment Performance Index basically measures that which country is taking appropriate steps in order to combat the climate change and maintain the stability of its environment in its domestic territories. That is why these indicators provide a gauge at a national scale of how close the countries are to established environmental policy targets. Now, if you see the rankings of this report, the top ranked country is Denmark, and this report believes that the countries like Denmark and UK are on the right path to achieve their national targets related to the environment and climate change. However, the countries like India and Myanmar are not on right track, and as we have discussed that this report measured 180 countries, and surprisingly India is ranked last among all these countries, that is 180. And in this very regard, the Environment Ministry of India has objected to the claims and conclusions drawn by this report. The Environment Ministry says that this report has not taken into account the steps taken by the Indian government in the front of renewable energy. Further, this report is built taking the average of last 10 years of the carbon dioxide emissions, but it has not taken the average of the longer period whereby developing countries like India has taken steps. It does not take into account all the wetlands as well as other carbon sinks whereby India has invested a lot. And because of all these reasons, India has termed this report as unscientific in nature. So this was a very brief topic relevant from the prelims perspective. This topic has also appeared at page number 14 and is in relation to the very important government scheme which was in news during the COVID pandemic times. This scheme was named as Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. The context of this very news article is that recently our finance minister has said that Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana has reduced the probability of the people consuming less food by 76% and cutting down on the usage of utilities by 75%. So despite the fact that this scheme is around 2 years old, but because it has reappeared in today's newspaper, so that is why we must look at certain key facts related to this particular Yojana, also known as package. So as we have discussed that this scheme was floated by the government during the COVID pandemic times, and that is why the prime objective of this particular Yojana was to help especially the most vulnerable sections, women, poorest of the poor, senior citizens, people suffering from certain disabilities during the COVID pandemic times when there was a dire situation across our country or for that matter across the world. And that is why it mainly pointed towards giving the economic support to all the sections. It was a comprehensive relief package of rupees 1.70 lakh crore for the poor people to help them fight the battle against COVID virus. This was started in March 2020 to reach out to the poorest of the poor sections with food and money in hands so that they do not face difficulties during those times. And in this very regard, it came up with the insurance cover of rupees 50 lakh per health worker fighting the COVID-19. 80 crore poor people were to be given additional 5 kg of wheat or rice and 1 kg of preferred pulses in addition to what they were getting under the National Food Security Act 2013. Further, around 20 crore women who were having their own Jan Dhan accounts were to get rupees 500 per month as a support money. This Garib Kalyan Yojana also focused the Manrega workers. It increased the Narega wages to rupees 202 from existing rupees 182 to benefit around 13.62 crore families. Further, the special provisions were also given to the senior citizens, poor, widows, and disabled sections. An important point of this Yojana was that all the finances were to be borne by the Ministry of Finance, and that is why it was the nodal ministry also. And further, in order to support the construction workers, the central government has directed the state government to use the building and construction worker welfare funds to provide relief to those people. So in totality, this scheme was about giving the economic support to multiple vulnerable sections in our society during the COVID pandemic times. And that is why our finance minister is saying that on the basis of some independent study, the government was able to meet most of the objectives, because of which the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana was started.
Now here is your question of the day. The answer to yesterday's question of the day was option A, that is only statement number 1 is correct. That is, State Food Safety Index is released by Food Safety and Standard Authority of India. The question for the day for today is, Environment Performance Index is released by option A, World Economic Forum, option B, United Nations Environment Programme, option C, Yale Center for Environmental Law, and option D, German Watch. Identify the correct answer and do comment in the comment box. That's all for today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.